on the regulatory standards bill. Let's get New Zealand's mojo back.
This bill's the key to better days, cutting red tape that blocks our ways. Politicians find it rewarding to bind, but we're bringing the sunlight to the grind. From because we said so to here's why, we'll justify laws beneath the sky. If you tax or take or limit lives, answer tough questions, freedom survives. And shine a light on every line, transparency by design, for the people, by the law. Let's get our mojo back once more, accountable and free at last. Learn from mistakes of the past, clear and honest, that's the track. Regulatory standards bring our mojo back. Mojo back. Earthquake regs took billions away. 9 years later we pay and we pray. Car crashes, cancer steal our time, while good intentions cross the line. Now the takings principle rings true. Don't take or impair what belongs to you. If you must explain it fair, say why and show that you still care. When property rights are severely impaired, let it be known, let it be shared. Publish the reasons, tell the truth. Transparency, that's the proof. No action force, no comp required, but sunlight's how trust is inspired. Fit for purpose, 21st century, principle law for you and me. Oh, shine the light on every line, transparency by design. If we ask you is to obey, we must be clear in what we say. Confidence we won't lack, the regulatory bill brings our mojo back. Some say it's undemocratic, a restriction tight, but this law promotes transparency's light. It strengthens parliament, not its chain. Accountability, the gain. Treaty, equity, health and green, already part of the government scene. This bill shows where rights are slack, where ordinary people feel the cracks. So shine that sunlight on the axe, hold us to the honest facts, with the Governor General on the track. We'll build trust that won't crack. Raise the bar, make it tight. Do it fair and do it right. For New Zealand's future path, we're bringing our mojo back. Form discipline for transparency, for the rights of ordinary people. I commend this bill to the House. Flying solo tonight. No producer, no guest host, no editor, and nobody audience watching me. Who will help me when it all goes wrong? If it goes wrong. If it goes wrong, if it goes wrong.
And welcome to tonight's Order Paper podcast. How are you tonight, Laura?
Jesus Christ, what was that?
It was a lovely song deciphered out of ChatGPT that took David Seymour's Hansard to the Regulatory Standards Bill and put it into a singable song.
Burn it. Set it on fire and don't play it again.
And the only person who got an advanced preview of it was Jeremy Naylor.
Yeah, I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear that song ever again. Good God, I should have bought stronger alcohol.
Oh, you might notice your name.
Yes. Now, did you do any homework tonight on the bills that we're going over?
DeepSeek did a lot of help.
Okay.
Did you?
Yes.
So I wonder how. I wonder if you got the same results out of DeepSeek.
Well, I only use DeepSeek as an advanced search engine. I don't use it to write my arguments.
Oh, no. I just use DeepSeek to sit down there and find out who has the best and the worst speeches.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's probably given us the same results. That would be interesting to match. Yep.
I mean, it says for the Regulatory Standards Bill, the top 3 speeches is Duncan Webb's, Chloe Swarbrick's, and Megan Woods. And the worst speeches are Cameron Brewer, Catherine Wedd, and Francisco Hernandez.
Okay, I didn't get Francesco on my worst. I just got backbenchers.
Okay, and for the fast track approval bill, the best speeches the best speeches are Rachel Brooking, Nicola Willis, and Priyanka Radhakrishnan. The worst speeches are Catherine Wedd, Grant McCullen, and Jamie Arbuckle.
I think I see the problem here. You said best and worst speeches. I typed in best and worst arguments.
Ah, interesting. Yes.
Yep, so I got different results. Because Nicola Willis did not reach my top arguments list.
Oh, I don't believe. Interesting how you change the parameters and how it completely splits out a different set of results.
Yeah, because the speeches is looking for what's the most engaging to listen to.
That explains why last week, one of the bills, it actually rated Simon Court in the best.
Yeah, because he was the most engaging, but that doesn't necessarily mean he had the most, the strongest argument, or, or that his argument was out fallacies, or that, Do I need a hug? No, I'm good. I'm good.
So, should we get into the regulatory standard bills with
no songs? No songs.
No. It's not a song.
Okay, good. And we're on mute.
Bill, second reading.
Point of order, Chloe Swarbrick.
Chair, I seek leave for the order of the day for the second reading of the Regulatory Standards Bill to be discharged.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objections? Yes. Leave denied. Okay. The Honourable David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the Regulatory Standards Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Regulatory Standards Bill be now read a second time. This bill is a crucial piece of legislation for improving the long-term quality of regulation in our country and ultimately allowing New Zealanders to live longer, happier, healthier and wealthier lives. In a nutshell, if red tape and regulation are holding New Zealanders back because politicians find it politically rewarding to tie them in red tape, then we need to make regulating less rewarding for politicians by putting more sunlight on their activities. And that is how the Regulatory Standards Bill will help New Zealand get its mojo back. This bill turns the explanation from politicians passing laws that restrict our freedoms from because we said so into because here is the justification according to a set of principles. And to the rest of the colleagues across the House, if you want to tax someone, if you want to take or impair their property, if you want to restrict their livelihood, well, you can still do it. But you'll face tough questions about the impacts that those actions have on people's property rights, their freedom, and the compliance of your proposal with the rule of law. It does this by introducing principles of responsible regulation into primary legislation with a focus on good lawmaking processes and the effect of lawmaking on existing interests and liberties. When making legislation, agencies and lawmakers will have to consider the principles and be transparent about those considerations. Agencies will need to confirm that the legislation and its process for developing it has been reviewed for consistency with the principles and summarise any inconsistencies with those principles. That work will need to be published, and where an inconsistency is identified, the responsible minister or the maker of any secondary legislation will need to explain the reasons why. And let's put that into perspective by considering some issues that matter to Kiwis and how the Regulatory Standards Bill helps us avoid such mistakes. Earthquake regulations, recently repealed and not a day too soon, have cost Kiwis billions. Saving $8.2 billion is what will occur when we remove these earthquake standards. But too many people have suffered, have their livelihoods taken away because a parliament and a group of politicians decided that being seen to do the right thing at a moment in time was more important than the underlying rights of New Zealanders. The warnings were there. I voted against that legislation myself. But nobody took the warnings seriously enough, and it was only 9 years and billions of dollars later that we are able to start putting those valuable resources into things like car crashes and cancers that sadly kill so many more Kiwis.
God, this speech is going to kill me.
I want to touch on one change that's been made to one of the principles of good regulation that's been particularly topical. The takings principle.
I just want it to be over with.
That principle provides that legislation should not take or impair property without the consent of the owner unless there's good justification and fair compensation is provided. The inclusion of impairment is essential to the intent of the bill, which is to focus attention on the impact of legislation on existing interests and liberties, as well as good lawmaking processes. When the government is considering passing legislation that impairs property rights, the nature and extent of that impairment should be made clear and relief should be considered. However, the committee's change clarifies the principle is intended to address situations where there is a high degree of impairment, not simply any impairment, and therefore a reference to quite severe impairment has been added, which means the principle will not be engaged when there is not a severe level of impairment. The bill does not require any action to be taken or compensation to be paid. The responsible minister can provide a statement of reasons why they consider a severe impairment to be justified and, if not paying compensation, the reasons for that position. However, the point is this principle will make it easier for Parliament and the public to see where property rights are being severely impaired, with the intent of helping reduce instances where impaired property rights without compensation lead to New Zealanders being so much poorer. I look forward to the committee of the whole stage. We can talk about the specifics of this bill in further detail. Overall, I'm proud to be responsible for a piece of legislation that discipline and transparency for New Zealand's lawmaking processes. This bill, when enforced, is going to support the people of New Zealand by ensuring them that serious consideration has been given to legislation that impacts on their lives and livelihoods. And if we're asking New Zealanders to comply with regulations in everyday life, then it's only reasonable to ensure that they're clear, consistent and meet a certain standard. When they do not meet that standard, the public rightfully expects lawmakers to be transparent about that fact. The passing of the Regulatory Standards Bill in later stages will take us a step closer to a more principled, transparent and accountable process for making legislation in New Zealand. It will help build confidence in the legislative process, support better outcomes for New Zealanders and ensure that our regulatory system is fit for purpose in the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, I've been very interested to see how easily people have mischaracterised this bill in the debates that has ensued. And I would like to touch on two changes that I think, or two objections that I think are misguided. One has been the repeated assertion that somehow the Regulatory Standards Bill imposes restrictions on Parliament and therefore is undemocratic.
Right,
the law is crystal clear, it's there in black and white. The purpose of this law is to promote accountability and transparency to the Parliament by the Executive. This enables our democracy, it enables greater transparency. And building on that misconception has been another widely shared in the public domain, that somehow the principles are inadequate because they don't include all of the objectives that the government might have. A government might wish to uphold the Treaty of Waitangi, it might wish to pursue goals around equity or public health or the environmental protection. But the fact that those are not included as principles reflects the fact that every initiative brought to this House and every regulation made by a government is already assumed to have a public purpose. It is already assumed to have a purpose like one of the ones that I listed. The purpose of this bill is to enable and make transparent the governments of the day to be able to show the public and the public to be able to see where that collective purpose and the pursuit of it is impairing the rights of ordinary people. So it's not a surprise that it doesn't include collective goals. The purpose of the law is to show when ordinary people's rights are being impaired. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Finance and Expenditure Committee for its very efficient consideration of the bill. I would like to also acknowledge the changes that they have made to the Regulatory Standards Board, in my view strengthening the bill by enhancing its independence, by saying that it will be reinforced by the Governor-General rather than the Minister for Regulation. I believe that that is going to make the Regulatory Standards Bill a much more august body with more authority, and it will allow that board to further raise the quality of the regulatory the consistency accountability statements. Mr. Speaker, without further ado, I thank everybody for listening, and I commend this bill to the House.
The question.
Oh, thank fuck, that's over.
Yeah, I love what Kiwi Skirt has just sat there and put out there with the lovely icon on the end.
It's policy wonkery. That's what the kids call it. It's just, he was just saying the same thing over and over and over again on repeat. So, for those that don't know what a regulatory standards bill is, let me explain it very simply, right? And I'm going to be a bit more engaging than Seymour. Imagine the government wants to create a new law. Well, this bill sets up a mandatory quality check system to make it harder for the government to pass laws that affect private property and business freedoms. So basically, the quality check, this is how it's going to work. A new checklist. The government creates an official checklist of principles of responsible regulation, which the most important parts are property rights. So basically, the government can't seriously reduce your property's value without a very good reason, and usually without paying you for it. So, you know, most of the time they can't break your shit, but sometimes they can, and they don't have to compensate you for it, right? They can't, drastically reduce your property's value. 9 times out of 10, they've got to pay you for that damage. But, sometimes they can't be bothered. Individual freedom. Laws cannot limit your freedom more than what is absolutely necessary. I don't think there's anyone in this country that disagrees with that idea. Cost versus benefit. A new law must do more good than harm. Well, at the moment, this bill is doing more good than harm, especially to my brain. Clarity. Laws must be easy to understand. Well, how easy did everyone find his speech and his explanation of that bill easy to understand? I didn't.
I was none the wiser.
Yeah. Well, so it's going to do that by... So the way how it's going to do this, how it's going to enforce all this, is by forced report cards. So for every new major law, the government must fill out a private report card, grading itself against the checklist. If the law breaks any checklist rules, the minister has to explain to the public why they are doing it anyway. Right?
Isn't that what regulatory impact statements for?
Yes, that's what it's for, but apparently it's not restrictive enough. But yeah, it's like with Judith Collins. She's like, oh yeah, this bill's going to violate human rights, but we're doing it anyways. So that's cool. That's nice. And this bill will set up a new watchdog group, a new independent group, the Regulatory Standards Board, and its job is to read government report cards and give its own opinion to Parliament, investigate complaints from the public about existing government regulations, but, this is one of the amendments that's just been put in, but is not allowed to investigate existing acts of Parliament.
Oh.
Yeah. So, now let's get to the more important stuff, right? How's this bill going to impact you? Right, everyday folks. So here's the good, as argued by supporters. They say that supporters say that it will hopefully this bill will lead to laws that are less complicated and annoying for you to deal with, and that there'll be more transparency. So basically, you'll be able to see the government's own assessment of a new law and its reasons for overriding the good law checklist. Protection from overreach. It will make it harder for the government to restrict your freedoms or reduce your property's value without a compelling public reason. So it's like, oh, well, I want your stuff, but, here's a good reason. I've got a national interest. I'm going to put this big, fat, chunky mine here, right? It's in the interest of the public to put the new mine shaft in here, right?
I wonder what... So would that mean that if your property value decreases, such as Mr. Christopher and Mrs. Amanda Luxon on a property on Great Barrier Island that reduced from 10.2 million to 7, could they ask for $300,000 compensation? No, was it $3 million compensation from the government?
Potentially, if it's the result of a government action.
Which, quite ironically, the government valuation was done just recently, dropped, was at the request of the owner to avoid $8,000 a year in rates.
Oh, well, there you go. And here's the final point that supporters are really excited about. A new complaints channel. You get a new official way to complain about government regulations through the board. Woo!
Let's fill up with beneficiaries complaining about the processes with wins.
True. That's actually a really good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, put it this way, you get wrongly sanctioned. You sit down there and you sit there, maybe you rightly get sanctioned,
Yeah.
Just say you got sanctioned so you complain to the Regulatory Standards Board.
Yeah, there you go. Why not? I can't see anything going wrong with that.
Here's a great one. Could food grant cards that restrict you from being able to purchase alcohol or tobacco, could that be breach, or could that be taken as a complaint to the Ministry of Regulation?
Well, I mean, only really if the corporation is impacted severely, potentially.
Well, I was going to say, what's the name called? The supermarkets that sell products?
Yeah, I mean, if the supermarket's main clientele base is people on the benefits buying tobacco and alcohol, then potentially. So let's talk about the bad part of this bill. So slower government. So it's actually going to slow down the government. The new paperwork and justification steps could slow down the government's ability to respond quickly to a crisis like a pandemic or a natural disaster. Yay! Chilling effect on protections. The government might become hesitant to pass new laws that protect the public if those laws harm business or property interests. Here's an example. Rules to stop water pollution could be harder to pass if they might severely impair a farm's value. There you go. You got nitrogen, you got phosphorus in the water, you got a farmer dumping stuff. Too bad.
Even if it affects the farmer down the stream who doesn't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. The farmers will just have to duke it out for each other, old-fashioned style. Public health. Laws restricting tobacco advertising could face huge hurdles for interfering with business freedom. So, there you go.
Well, considering Chloe Swarbrick has said there is one to push to remove alcohol advertising in the same context as tobacco advertising.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's interfering with, alcohol manufacturing companies.
No more seeing the what do you call it, the TUI ads about the girls at the brewery.
True.
You remember those ads from when we were much younger?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay,
when they got rid of men working at the brewery, they suddenly stopped drinking on the job.
Yeah. Can we get a carve out specifically for TUI ads? That'd be great. Okay. So. And then we go over the costs of implementing this board. All the extra reports are going to cost taxpayers millions of dollars. So we're not saving any money doing this. And then we've got the really ugly shit, okay? The checklist is incomplete. The official checklist leaves out other vital principles like the Treaty of Waitangi. There's no principle in the bill for the Treaty of Waitangi. Human rights and environmental protection. This means a law could be called high quality by the Regulatory Standards Bill even if it harms the environment or fails Māori, because those factors aren't on the checklist it uses. And
any provisions with the Bill of Rights Act of 1993?
No. There's no principles there. There's no principle there. I've looked through the bill. Let's have a look. I've got my notes here. Let's have a look. Rule of law, liberties, taking property, taxes, fees, levies, role of courts, and good lawmaking. So nowhere does it say human rights under the principles. It doesn't even address our international obligations. So yeah, basically, this bill's going to tilt the playing field. The bill systemically prioritizes private property rights, not public. I wish it did. Prioritizes private property rights and economic interests over other public goods like community well-being, health, and clean environment. So he's talking about when Seymour was talking really fast there for a hot minute. He was saying, "Oh, we don't care about the collective good, or we're not going to prioritize that because this is about individual rights." Well, here's the thing: when you've got stuff like an environmental disaster, like that big cyclone, Gabrielle, that flew on through, right? You now got hazards that impact the collective well-being of community. When you've got lack of healthcare services, that impacts the community. When you've got corporations putting like forever chemicals in the water, that impacts the wider community. So you can't just look at individuals you also have to look at whole communities.
Yeah.
And that's why, as a libertarian socialist, I'm out here saying you cannot have equality without equity, and that forces you to look at wider communities as well and how legislation will impact them. But also, the other thing too is that, did you know that 98.7% of people and organisations that submitted their views on this bill were opposed to it?
That doesn't surprise me. Well, actually, I kind of knew that, but maybe our audience didn't.
Yeah, that's right. I just thought I'd put that in there. You know, it's like, yeah, the majority of people that submitted on this, the vast majority, don't want it. So that's nice. So not to mention, this bill didn't even follow its own standards. When it was being developed, it used a rushed process. It used urgency. It used all this other crap to get it done.
It's not select committee times, I think, would be the best word, because this bill hasn't actually gone under any urgency provisions yet.
Oh, it hasn't gone under any urgency. Well, you know,
the government's given up doing urgency because the fact that every time you go into urgency, you can't run select committees.
Oh, well, whatever you call it.
So they're using the other provision called extended sitting times.
Oh, well, there you go.
Which is basically the friendlier version of urgency.
Yeah. But yeah, here's pretty much the bottom line, the summary of this bill. If you're a right-wing libertarian, and you believe the government has become too intrusive and needs a strict system to protect individual property rights, you'll like this bill. If you're everyone else, you'll believe that the government needs to act decisively to protect the environment, public health, and social well-being. If you're in that camp, like I am, you're going to see this bill as a dangerous obstacle that favours private interests over the public good. So, thanks, Seymour. I hate it.
So, should we move on to Duncan Webb?
Yeah, let's go on to Duncan Webb.
A bill that 0.7% of submitters supported. It is hard to find a bill which fewer people are in favour of. But this national government is the lapdog of the ACT Party in this instance, sitting there and doing the ACT Party's bidding. And the real irony of that speech by David Seymour is that this bill is one of the worst in terms of regulatory quality that I have ever seen. And do you know who said that? The Ministry for Regulation and the Ministry for Justice in the regulatory impact statement. They said this bill has been poorly consulted on. It hasn't got a problem that it needs to address. Even if there was one, it's the wrong solution, and the Minister won't let us do our job and explore other options. That is how you make bad law, and that is what we've got here. One thing that struck me about the submissions process was the long list of submitters who came in and gave really thoughtful submissions. Not people from particular perspectives, but NGOs, even government organisations came in and said, this is a bad idea. You know who looks after our legislative quality at the moment? The Legislation Design and Advisory Committee. Excellent body, thoughtful people, hate politics. They said these principles are novel and deeply contestable. In other words, this is not a straightforward bill. This is a politically charged ideological bill. What did the Law Society say? It's striking that the process and content of the bill purporting to promote good lawmaking and high-quality legislation should fail to meet not only the bill's own standards, but the existing established processes for supporting good lawmaking. So it's a bad bill. The Human Rights Commission, our independent human rights body. This bill embeds a narrow set of principles that prioritises individual and private interests as paramount considerations in lawmaking, sidelining wider considerations of collective well-being. The Human Rights Commission hates this bill. And then you've got a whole lot of regional councils, the Greater Wellington Regional Council. This bill will impact on local government, creating legal risks, inefficiency, complexity and increased costs. Does that sound like good law? And I picked those quotes because they are not politically aligned. They haven't got an axe to grind. They are thoughtful people who explain why this bill is bad law. Of course, David Seymour says, here's my list of regulatory principles, but don't worry, you can have other things in there. You know, just because I haven't mentioned Te Treaty o Waitangi doesn't mean it's not in there. That is rubbish, because what this bill does is it highlights what, in his view, are the most important principles. And at the top of that hierarchy are private property rights. This bill is seeking, by the back door, to entrench private property rights as a constitutional principle. And in fact, the chief economist of his own Ministry of Regulation wrote a paper saying that private property rights are the most important human right not currently in our law. So we can see where it's coming from. These principles are totally selective. Private property is not a guiding light for good legislation and regulation. The fact of the matter is that equal treatment, the second principle, stating that everyone should be treated equally, is shorthand for the status quo. It's shorthand for saying, take the existing inequalities in our society and don't seek to address them. It's saying, where wealth has accumulated, leave it there. Well, on this side of the House, we believe in equity. We believe in addressing the inequities which are troubling our society. And of course, not only is it silent on the treaty, it's silent on all kinds of other key principles. All of our international obligations, nowhere in that bill does it say we should adhere to the promises we of a nation have made in the international community, whether they be around human rights or whether they be around defence and trade. Human rights. What does it say about gender? What does it say about disability? What does it say about race? It says absolutely
nothing.
This bill, the ACT Party doesn't want to debate human rights. The ACT Party's not interested in human rights. The ACT Party is interested in property rights. This bill is constitutionally significant. It is about how law is made. Now, the fact of the matter is that for a constitutional bill, the process has been shocking. A constitutional bill should be careful, thoughtful and ideally engaged in on a cross-party basis. This has been anything but. This bill is seeking to entrench property rights into our law-making process by stealth and at speed. It basically promotes private property interests over collective benefits. Fundamentally, this is about looking after corporate interests. Because if we think about it, if we think about all of those rules there, all of those impairment rules, if we try to protect our communities, if we try to reduce the use of vapes, or if we try to limit alcohol advertising, all of these are impairments. Now, David Seymour would say, well, you can do it, you just have to say why, but we know that putting sand in the gears of legislation makes things less likely to happen, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to tilt the playing field in favour of corporate interests. The bill, and look, even the Commissioner for the Environment came along, and not known as a great supporter of the left, but he came along and had a lot to say. But the most important thing he had to say is this: this bill puts the environment at risk, because the environment nowhere does the environment feature. And so when your bureaucrats are doing their bureaucratic job and all of this new blue tape and yellow tape that David Seymour's creating, as they're running through their checklist, where does it say, how does this impact climate change? How does this impact biodiversity? How does this impact sustainability? It doesn't say it anywhere, because this bill, at the heart of this bill, is putting property and private interests over community, environment and sustainability. The bill also is just a failure. It's an absolute procedural and regulatory failure. As I've said, failed its own riz. So the very thing it says we should do, which is check a bill for good process, that was examined and they said it didn't meet good process. And probably the most important thing, if we have an issue with regulatory quality in New Zealand, the question is what's the best way to fix it? And the short answer by everyone who was asked the question is not this. We have a whole lot of rules out there already, a whole lot of bodies, the Attorney General, the Legislation Design and Advisory Committee, the Regulations Review Committee, every select committee, and the list goes on of quality checks that exist for legislation which aren't engaged in sufficiently already, largely because this government ignores them and rides roughshod over them. So here we had a situation where the scope of the question was limited. David Seymour, against all his own advice, came into this with a closed mind. Poor problem definition and a solution that was in place before the problem was identified. But here's the other thing. This bill will cost a fortune. Not only will it have to set up its regulatory standards board, its little pet board, at a cost of probably $2 or $3 million, but every ministry will have to follow his new yellow tape. All of his rules he's put in place. How much will that cost? Well, MB said that department alone will have to spend 15% of its time following David Seymour's little rules, at a cost of $60 million. $60 million. You can rubbish at David Seymour, but you've seen the report and you know it. So it's a total waste of money. And the second thing is this, or the final thing is this: this bill puts into the hands of the Regulatory Standards Boards the job of questioning what we do here. That's their job, second-guessing Parliament. And for a party that talks about parliamentary sovereignty, then that lies ill in your mouth. The bill is a waste of money, it doesn't meet its own standards, it's narrow, it's contested, and it's a constitutional change by self. We will oppose this bill to the end.
Chloe Swarbrick.
Mr. Speaker, I guess at the end of the day, the real question for this House is precisely
sorry.
who are.
There we are.
I think this is the real parody you could have made. Bill, yeah, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, yeah. Okay?
Type me up the lyrics and we'll see if Sonu can make a song for that.
Yeah, see, that's how you make a parody, right? You know, what is the bill good for? Absolutely nothing. Bill, I despise because it means destruction of innocent lives. This bill means tears to thousands of mothers' eyes when their sons go out to work and lose their lives, you know? So
Oh, that sounds very Pike River.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just riffing that off the top of my head. So if you want AI to make you a good parody, you some things you just got to read first and go, oh, that's a cool reference, and then build your parody around that. But there you go. I just wanted to say that because he made a reference to that song. But anyway, good argument. Good argument from Duncan Webb.
Any other comments, queries, gripes, groans, moans you want to add?
Yes. I liked this argument because it was evidence-based. I liked the fact that Duncan cited the fact that 98.7% of public submissions in expert bodies such as the legislation...
Do you mean 99.8% or 99.7?
No, 98.7.
It's 98.7. Okay, so it wasn't quite 99. Okay.
There you go. All right, we can round. Let's do Swedish rounding. Let's round it up to 99%. Of public submissions and expert bodies such as the Legislative Design and Advisory Committee and the New Zealand Law Society and the Human Rights Commission, the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment and the Waitangi Tribunal. I like the fact that he also brought up the up to $60 million cost per year to MBI. And I've actually got the Treasury OIA request here that people can look at. So, you know, he's actually bought receipts. I like that. I like receipts. Are you going to get Sora to make an AI version of Duncan Webb's argument?
I don't know.
In the style of...
I got Sonu to sit there and do that song. Like ChatGPT wrote the words and recommended a genre, and that's what Sonu delivered.
All right. Okay. Me and ChatGPT need to have a word. But yes. Yeah. So I will add more commentary after Chloe. But yes, because a lot of their arguments are pretty similar.
Okay, let's get on to, was it not yet the Honourable Chloe Swarbrick?
For this piece of legislation, because it wasn't health experts, it wasn't the legal profession, it definitely wasn't former prime ministers and heads, those who have led former political parties, it wasn't regular New Zealanders. In fact, regular New Zealanders decided to overwhelmingly oppose this piece of legislation. So if we just boil it down to the two main threads of arguments that were heard at Select Committee and have been well canvassed in the media landscape over the last few months as this minister has decided to push this legislation through despite the overwhelming opposition. On the one side, we've heard that it's largely redundant, that it is going to be duplicative, and as indeed Dr. Duncan Webb alluded to, it'll be expensive. Then on the other side of the debate, at the most egregious end, we hear very clearly that what this legislation does is provide a framework for multinational corporations to be compensated by the people of this country when this parliament decides to curtail their supposed right to destroy our shared environment, our climate, or to incur on our human rights. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, again, one of those foundational questions. We hear a heck of a lot from the Libertarian or the supposed Libertarian Party in this place about special treatment for certain demographics in our country. And we have to ask ourselves, who really is getting special treatment in this country? Because so frequently we hear the minister in charge of this legislation say that it is precisely the same communities and demographics who are disproportionately overrepresented in every single negative statistic in our society. We then don't hear next to anything about the corporations who are exploiting both people and planet, and in fact, they seek to pass this legislation which makes it easier for them to do precisely that exploitation. I find it quite fascinating, Mr. Speaker, that we are indeed having this debate about a law about how a law is made, this law being the constraints of the rules of how we are supposed to progress with making legislation into the future. And we have a situation where the minister couldn't follow his own rules. He wants to talk about good lawmaking, yet he couldn't even uphold the processes of good lawmaking. Today, the Minister of Education is removing te tiriti obligations from schools and saying that it is the Crown's obligation to uphold those obligations. Yet we have represented in this very piece of legislation the removal and the deprioritisation of te tiriti as a principle that is to be considered in good lawmaking practices. Which leads us to the statement from the Waitangi Tribunal, and here I quote from their urgent inquiry report nonetheless, that the Crown accepted that its policy development for the bill occurred without targeted engagement for Māori. The Tribunal found that this was in violation of the Crown's obligation to consult with Māori in good faith and therefore violated treaty principles of partnership and active protection. Further, Mr Speaker, we hear from the likes of the Legislation Design and Advisory Committee, who submitted on the first round of the design of this legislation, which I might add had approximately 25,000 submissions, which again were overwhelmingly opposed to this legislation. And they said at that point in time that they had, quote, misgivings about the capacity of this bill to offer improvements because they see risks with the proposals, including the risk of significant unintended consequences. They then went into three key prongs. The bill is unnecessary to the extent that it restates existing constraints and the principles of good lawmaking. Secondly, the principles contained in the bill are selective and deeply contestable. And thirdly, the bill has the potential for significant constitutional impact that has not been fully explored. Mr Speaker, if we are to take the Minister's arguments in good faith, at just that surface level, and to ignore all of the behaviour and everything else that he has said about our many communities across this country, if we are to believe that the aim here is to make good law, then surely there should have been a good law-making process to produce this very law, which would have brought the people of this country along for that process. Instead, what we have ended up with is something whereby, as the Minister would say, it's the people who are wrong. It's his own officials who are wrong. It's the legal experts who are wrong, the environmental experts, the health experts, former Prime Ministers, the overwhelming majority of regular New Zealanders who use their time to oppose this legislation, 99% of them, only to be ignored yet again by this government. Then we have the Impartial Law Society, who says, and I quote, as well as being the product of inadequate consultation, the content of the bill itself runs contrary to established precepts of legislative design in various important respects. It is striking that the process and the content of the bill purporting to promote good lawmaking and high-quality legislation should fail to meet not only the bill's own standards, but the existing established processes for supporting good lawmaking. And then we hear about the red tape. The red tape, Mr Speaker. Well, let's just talk for a minute about the yellow tape, which the Minister's own ministry advised him he would be creating with this very piece of legislation. Firstly, the creation of the Regulatory Standards Board, which we've just heard will cost in excess of approximately $3 million of taxpayers' dollars per year. Then there are the new compliance costs with the requirement for each ministry and agency and department to create a consistency accountability statement. And then thirdly, at the conservative estimate of $60 million per year, the requirement to review existing legislation. Again, Mr Speaker, I'd make the core point that if the government genuinely wanted to engage on the point of how we make good law and improve our constitutional arrangements in this country, we're game. We'd be totally down for that. Because in fact, I think that it would be great if we could have some form of agreement about the values and the principles that guide this country. But what we instead, unfortunately, have represented here is a pet vanity project from one guy in one political party that has sought to pass this legislation 3 times and failed until it met such a poor negotiator as our current Prime Minister. So on those foundational values, Mr Speaker, well, I hold the very earnest and perhaps some on the government side might say naive view that New Zealanders actually care about each other and the planet that we live on. But Mr Speaker, those principles, well, they're nowhere to be seen as far as the design of this legislation. And again, we would make the point that if the government wanted to actually meaningfully engage on how we could go about creating these better processes, the Greens absolutely would have been the first ones sitting around the table. Unfortunately, what we have here is the entrenchment of special rights for those who currently own things. And as we well canvassed in question time today, this government cares not a whisker for addressing inequality. Inequality, Mr. Speaker, which is compounding under intentional government decisions that have been made to push more children into poverty, to make more people homeless, to increase our climate changing emissions and in turn the cost of living for New Zealanders, whilst also making it more difficult for our farmers to farm because guess what? They're the ones hit first and worst by climate change. Mr. Speaker, if we wanted legislation that actually addressed these issues, we could be debating that here in the chamber today, but instead we unfortunately have this petty vanity project. And I just make the other point that you kind of can't have it both ways. On one side of things, the government's saying, don't worry, nothing to see here, this is kind of just business as usual, this aligns with stuff that's kind of already happening and in train. But then on the other side, we've got a minister professing that this is a bit of a foundational shift in our constitutional arrangement. And again, I think I tend to believe the latter, because what we've seen from our Prime Minister is an inability to grasp the detail of the things that he has negotiated and put our country on the line for in order to cobble together this coalition government. I just make, in my final 30 seconds, an appeal to the New Zealand First Party. Will the New Zealand First Party please stand up? Because here is an opportunity to truly put New Zealand first. One of our amendment papers, which will be tabled at the Committee of the Whole, will be to stop non-citizens from taking complaints and seeking compensation from the Regulatory Standards Board. And we look forward to New Zealand First supporting New Zealand First. We oppose this bill.
I don't know, Chloe. That's a bit ableist to say, please stand up. They might have members that can't stand up.
Now, here's something Kiwi has sat and brought up. Now, the thing is with submissions is it's not a referendum. Unfortunately, on this occasion, I'm going to sound like I'm sticking up for David Seymour. But the thing is, submissions is to get public opinion. Submissions, unfortunately, aren't a referendum. Now, at least the good thing here is the arguments that were against the Regulatory Standards Bill actually were grounded in fact. Whereas arguments that are commonly used to say why Māori ward should not exist is based on misinformation. Now, here's something I do sit there and hold the principle. If the submissions are filled with misinformation, should it hold the same weight as something that is based in fact? Now, that's the thing there, because a submission of fact should significantly outweigh a submission of misinformation. But the question will be is, as David Seymour has sat there and said, anything that opposed to it, you suffered from regulatory standards delusion syndrome, or you are completely misinformed or something. Basically, so I don't know. David Seymour might rate that 99% of submissions that were against it were based on misinformation. Completely garbage. But David Seymour would sit there and think that.
Yeah, I mean, just going over these principles again. Like the principles say. I'm just going to open up these principles. The government, good lawmaking. Okay, so the government must talk to people who will be affected by the new law. Did they do that? No, not really. They didn't. They certainly didn't consult with iwi Māori or people, that are in environmentally sensitive areas. So they didn't. They're not really upholding the standards that they're setting forward for future governments. And what was that I just called out before? Sorry, I've got so many notes, but there was one of the principles that they're putting forward. So basically, hold on a minute. Level playing field, high quality, chilling effect on law, environmental stuff. There was okay, okay, all right. No, I don't have it. I said before that they had to be transparent in a way that they could essentially pass a law that could potentially violate human rights or whatever. But as long as they announced it, they had to explain why they're doing it. I can't find the note for that. Where did I put that? Sorry, I'm terrible at podcasting and I'm very tired and I drank too much alcohol again. God, I hate it when that happens. Yep, no, I haven't got it.
That's all right. You
there,
can tell me, who's the next argument we should be going to?
You choose.
Oh, okay. So if we go to the rankings in there, let's look at Cameron Brewer's ranked as number one. Was it worst argument? Oh no, worst speech.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, the Regulatory Standards Bill gives effect to National's coalition agreement with ACT. And as chair of the relatively collegial Finance and Expenditure Committee, we also undertook extensive consultation on these matters. We heard, Mr. Speaker, approximately 30 hours of oral evidence and received over 159,000 written submissions. And of course, this follows last year's departmental consultation, which attracted 23,000 submissions. FEC, the Finance and Expenditure Committee, Mr. Speaker, canvassed a range of views and took a relatively liberal and cross-party approach as to who we would hear from and its acceptance of submissions. Following many submitters' feedback, Mr. Speaker, key amendments to this bill have seen a best practice tightening of the board and chair's independence and separation from the minister and government of the day, consistent with the provisions within the Crown Entities Act. I want to congratulate the ACT Party on what has been over 20 years of advocacy and hard work. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe that Laura should apply to be on that board as a former card-carrying supporter.
Who? Me?
Yeah.
No. No. I don't want anything to do with this bill.
Why? You can be the Trojan horse within.
Why the fuck would I do that?
Because then you'll end up making the checklist and go, you forgot to put the training principles in there.
Listen, back when I was an ACT supporter, I did bring up issues with TTDT, such as lack of reference to it and all that stuff in legislation. They just laughed me out of the room. They don't care. They either ignore you or they just fucking tell you you're just an idiot. To put it quite bluntly, having spoken with other members, it's just, I haven't had a very nice reception with other people within the party, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very, very tired today, and I'm not really paying much attention to the speeches.
Now, you found it was a checklist, or did you post it in the chat?
Yeah, I posted that in the chat.
Okay.
So for every major law, the government must fill out a public report card guiding itself against the checklist. If the law breaks any checklist rules, the minister has to explain to the public why they're doing it anyways. So I was kind of right before. Okay, so that was one of those weak arguments that that I was talking about. The lack of substance, extremely brief. You notice that a lot of these people that are in support of the bill, with the exception of David Seymour, are giving very brief
put it this way. Put it this way. Cameron Brewer talked about the number of submissions and how long they spent in the select committee. Nothing about the bill itself, just what happened when I was the chair of the select committee.
Yeah, and you're going to find that with a lot of the backbencher speeches in particular. They're going to start presenting things like slogans, cut red tape, hold power to account, but they're going to do that without explaining how the bill's going to achieve this or what the costs and trade-offs would be. Duncan Webb was really the only guy that said this could cost up to $60 million of taxpayers' dollars. But yeah, I mean, Cameron, did he acknowledge the 98.7% of submitters?
Probably not.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that I found too, going over the Hansard, is that a lot of the arguments in favour are ignoring the criticisms and arguments put forward by the 98.7% submitters that opposed the bill, and the critical feedback from expert bodies like the New Zealand Law Society and the Ministry for the Environment, that they're not really addressing the criticisms of going, well, actually, the bill is not going to do that. They're just basically stand up and say, this is a cool bill, and then sit back down again, which I don't blame them, but, go get your bag. But, why
don't they just give the speeches to ACT? I mean, yeah. I don't know if they can actually do that in Parliament, whether the National Party could give their speeches to the minor parties of their coalition. And actually, if there is a standing order that allows that, can they do that at times? Because I can tell you right now, if ACT actually had a second speech in there, it probably would be a bit better than some of the national speeches.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I did note about Cameron Brewer's speech, because I did write down a note for that. Cameron Brewer's argument This is the problem with what he just stood up and did, apart from how short a speech was. But his argument rested entirely on the fact that the bill was part of the coalition agreement. He didn't talk about the merits of the bill. Which is what you should be doing if you're arguing in favour of something. You should talk about how cool it is and what cool things it's going to do and how cool it is for the public and why it's actually worth investing your tax dollars into it. He didn't do any of that. He just stood up, said, cool bill, and sat back down again.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this is what I did. And it's like, okay, cool. Thanks for the show and tell. I need something more meaty to... How's it going to benefit me? I'm sitting right here, potential voter. Actually not, because my vote's elsewhere. But anyways... Imagine me, I'm a farmer on a farm, right? I've got a farm background behind me. How's this bill going to be cool for me? And he didn't put that argument forward. Like how's it going to benefit me? No. How's it going to benefit you, Sam? What benefits do you get from this bill?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, we're in the same boat.
Yeah, I don't see how it helps my business.
Yeah.
Unless what's meant to help my business is, say, suppression of minimum wage increases.
I don't think he even addressed how it's going to help big businesses.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And what happens if it's what happens if you have a situation, say, it affects, say, a benefit that benefits Fonterra affects Silver Fern Farms.
Yeah.
With beef or cattle, because we get milk from cows. We also get our beef from cows. Different
breeds of cow, though. This is one thing I can talk about. Yeah, you got Jersey breeds and stuff like that. They're not usually used for beef production.
Okay.
That's your Angus breeds and stuff like that. They're used for beef production. So there's I don't see them fighting with each other. But there are other things you could do too, like public health interests in tobacco advertising, or you could have potentially what's one that I could come up with, like during COVID, right? And then you had
mask mandates.
Yeah, although you had COVID, and you could have potentially ivermectin, and the government could say, "No, don't take ivermectin. It's actually not going to help you." And then you could have the company go, "Well, excuse me, you're impacting our sales."
Yeah, exactly. It's not in our rankings of best to worst, but shall we hear what Casey Costello's got to say?
I guess.
Yeah, it's a quick speech.
Speaker.
The Honourable Casey Costello.
Mr Speaker, I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak on the Regulatory Standards Bill first reading. Mr Speaker, New Zealand First supports this bill because it promotes open and accountable government that legislates with key principles in mind: the rule of law, efficiency and regulation, property rights, an independent judiciary, and the belief that every New Zealander is created equal before the law. Mr Speaker, the bill upholds equality before the law, it promotes openness and accountability in government, and ensures property holder rights cannot be dispossessed of their property without fair compensation, and cost-benefit analysis of legislation ensures that economic policies that will impede productivity and growth are adequately scrutinised. For these reasons, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First commends the bill to the House.
Thank you. The next call is a split.
Okay, Casey, I've got questions. What existing legislation, what existing standards when it comes to writing legislation, right, does not promote equality before the law? How is this going to do more of that? Because it's basically what this is. This bill is just a cut and paste. Like a lot of the principles are just cut and paste. The only thing that's really been excluded here is stuff like Treaty Waitangi, international obligations, and environmental protections.
Particularly with there's like we have that EU free trade deal that also has climate change provisions in it. Yeah, so I don't know. Like again, I keep harping on about this. Everyone keeps going, "Oh, this is a libertarian bill." No, for fuck, no, it's not. It's a corporation bill. It's a bill that favors people lots of money. It's not a bill that favors working class folk. And as a libertarian socialist, I hate it when the word libertarians even associate anything near close to this bill, because it completely ignores the working class people. Are they equal, or are they not equal because they lack money? Yeah. But also, we all know that she's in the pocket of the tobacco industry. Come on. Of course she's going to give it the thumbs up. I know. Right, she's along with the Hobson pledge. Yeah, of course she's going to give it the thumbs up. It's like, yep, this is a great bill. I'm going to sit back down again. It's like, cool, thanks. He literally did a seat warmer speech on that one. Now. Yeah, got to keep that tobacco warm, I guess. Okay.
So before we head off to the next bill that you want to cover,
I was going to say Matua Rawiri Waititi.
well, I was going to say super chats.
Oh yes,
Right.
yes.
This is well, yep, okay. Super chat, $10 New Zealand. Just wanting Sam and Laura's take on the Jenny Marcroft bill sitting in Parliament's biscuit tin, which will ban the sale of fireworks, public displays only, and there are people using the freedom rationale. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, right? This is actually a really good question, the freedom rationale part, because a lot of libertarians, including myself, in fact, you can't. I mean, yeah, I'm going to use the no Scotsman fallacy here, but it is true. One of the key things about a libertarian is the non-violence or non-aggressive principle, right? If I do things on my property that impacts the health and well-being, what the fuck is that? That impacts the the health and well-being of other people, right? That's not a good thing. That's me violating the freedom of that other person, right? An example of this would be like an abortion ban, right?
Yep.
Really good example of that. The non-aggressive principle. Some libertarians said, well, you're killing the fetus. Other libertarians will say, like me, no, you're violating the freedom of the individual, right? Yep. Now, when it comes to the fireworks discussion, this is one of those things where you have the freedom to go boom, boom, bang on your property, but only when the boom, boom, bang doesn't impact other people living on their property, right? For example, if you've got like children or you got like neighbors, let's say neighbors with animals or whatever, right? Your action could cause harm to that other person's property. But also there's more to it than just property. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about animals. We're talking about sentient beings, right? So things like, I can do things, I can use my freedom on my property. Well, what happens if something goes wrong, right? If you've got like fire trucks needing to come out to your property, or you've got horses running down the road because you blew up some fireworks, so you could say, oh, that's not my responsibility.
This happened to one of our Muslims customers. Rachel's based in Puckery Bay. Due to the fireworks, the two dogs ran away and were found in Patanui.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
to get away from loud firework noises. And these dogs are hunting dogs.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a good
it's example. Basically like, and put this in context to you, it'll be like your dogs ending up in Paetua. Or for Alex, it'll be the dogs ending up in Wainuiomata.
Yep, and then you've got those dogs that are out running about that could be impacting other people's property. But here's the thing. I think it's a very narrow-minded way to live in society. It's not thinking about your community, right? If you want to live in isolation and play with boom, boom, bang sticks, go ahead. As a libertarian, knock yourself out. But if you want to live in a community of people, right, you have to live as a collective group. It's not just you and your little bubble, because unfortunately we don't live in little bubbles. Actions we do on our own properties impacts other people on other properties. And even it can result in very dangerous consequences. Like, for example, having worked in forestry, right? I can't legally, I don't have the tickets to do this. I don't have the tickets to go cut down a tree on my property that's underneath a bunch of power lines.
No, you have to get the Lions Company involved.
Yes, I have to get the arborists involved. That's not something I can do, right? And there's quite strict regulations around that. Why? Because if I chop down that tree and it lands on those power lines, it impacts a lot of people up the road, and also it becomes a fire hazard and a safety hazard, and it could kill people.
It probably could sit down there and put the power out between Nikotuna and Pongaroa.
Yeah, true. Yes.
Potentially, yeah, because I don't know how many lines feed into Pongaroa, but it's not like it sits down there and has 20 feed-in lines into that place. It probably has about 3.
Yeah,
and one of them definitely comes from your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, look at, isn't it? There's a fire down the desert road at the moment that people think that it might have been kicked off by fireworks. That's a public safety risk at that point. You're getting the taxpayer to pay a lot of money to put that fire out, control that fire, make sure.
Right, and most of the income that comes to fund the fire service is from insurance policies.
Yeah, it's not going from
fireworks. Not even from taxpayers' money. It's from insurance policies.
Oh, well, there you go.
Which means it's only for those people who actually choose to pay into the insurance system.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
Yes. So, yeah, if the majority of people say, look, we want to have a ban in our community for fireworks because it's impacting our well-being, our collective well-being as a community. You know, if you want to play boom, boom, bang sticks, I'm sorry, you've got to live in isolation away from nice taxpayer things like power and roads and stuff like that, because it's like, okay, you want total freedom on your property? Sorry, there's a cost to that. You don't get nice things.
Yeah. And it's also, you know, yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, what happens when things go wrong? Like, I remember one time it was lighting of fireworks, and we decided to light it off at the beach and aim it to the sea because that had the least chance of the residual causing a fire elsewhere at Hokio Beach.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is we got the car stuck on the beach at the same time. So
that's fun. Yeah, that's the fun part. Did anyone have to pull you out? Who pulled you out?
No, we managed to push the car. We managed to push it back, but it was like literally like digging backwards and forwards and all sorts of things there.
Oh yeah.
And it was like we got it there, but as soon as it got onto a certain piece of stand, my dad and I had to walk like, you know, 300-400 meters to meet the car before it hit the point that it could stop at.
You know what the moral of the story is? Don't drive a car on the beach unless you got diff locks.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Yeah, we didn't quite know exactly. Yeah, it's something we didn't do often. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just people that use the freedom rationale. It's not something that they 100% abide to either.
No,
right?
no,
if someone like, look, I could go outside 10 p.m. start up my chainsaw. What do you think is going to happen? I think the same libertarian is probably going to start calling noise control.
Exactly, and stating that you're breaching the resource management by making noises above 40 decibels.
Yeah, so personally, I don't care about people that use the freedom rationale. They live in a civil society with the rest of us. They just want a special carve out for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't care about these people. I care more about the community, which, to be honest, the tax-paying community that's paying for nice public services that this person is using, and they want a special carve out for them. No.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's not how living in a society works. And also, you know, public displays are not being banned. So we've still got public displays, right? If you want to become a pyrotechnic, you know, you have the freedom to go and get a license.
Yeah. So, should we get off to Rawiri Waititi?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Cool. Mr. Speaker, e te iwi, the Treaty Principles Bill tried to change the meaning and the intent of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. The Regulatory Standards Bill erases Te Tiriti entirely from Aotearoa's democracy without even mentioning it. This bill creates a world of minimal to no rules in order to ensure the profitability of all things. All things means at the expense of our people, our oranga, our labour, our whenua, our moana. The bill circumvents the rights you already have by treating those rights as rules, which the government can consider inefficient and unprofitable. Eki. Te Tiriti o Waitangi is the first and the last line of defence against corporate exploitation in Aotearoa. This bill and the sham select committee process to ram it through the House is proof that true democracy doesn't exist in this country. This is what the Treaty Principles Bill, the Takutai Moana Amendment Act, and the removal of treaty clauses from legislation are really about. Dismantling our collective rights to allow the Atlas Network-backed foreign companies to plunder lands, water and resources. It creates an anti-Waitangi tribunal, giving David Seymour's unelected mates the power to review every single law that addresses systemic inequality. Make no mistake, Hikama, the Treaty Principles Bill was a distraction. Chris Luxon's donors only allowed him to vote against it because they knew this bill was coming next. The Regulatory Standards Bill is a direct assault on the constitutional foundations that protects all New Zealanders from exploitation. O te iwi Māori, this looks like your rights are now rules, that the government can deregulate as they see fit, especially when these rights are held collectively. For example, as a part of the common public good or as hapu and iwi. These rights create costs that the government under the Regulatory Standards Bill can deem to be unnecessary. Our people know this, and this is why 98.7% of New Zealanders oppose the Regulatory Standards Bill. Yet, not a single recommendation provided by the people was adopted. Te Pāti Māori stand with the majority of the 156,000 plus people who made submissions against the bill, because they knew what this bill means for Aotearoa. For our remote and rural communities, this bill means the emergency services and authorities can make decisions about who and where to help in a crisis, based on efficiency rather than need, because it's more expensive to help everybody. And this looks like our more marginalised and rural communities being left behind. For our community kai gatherers and whānau who rely on the moana as a kapata, the bill would enable the government to smash our fisheries even further. For example, a rule about putting cameras on boats to monitor fisheries and illegal dumping can be argued as inefficient, because it is an unnecessary cost, with no regard for our moana or our people who depend on it. What this means for our kaumātua, because this bill would enable governments to raise the age eligibility for our nannies and koros to access their super, or significantly alter the scheme completely. For our learning support kaimahi and their tauira, this bill would allow the government to justify reducing Māori curriculum content that would require expertise and new staff to deliver it, an additional cost that they would be able to label as inefficient, purely due to the expense rather than need. The cost of education should not cost our mokopuna the ability to be supported in our education system. For our whānau and rangatahi on social welfare, right now the government is moving debt off its own balance sheet and placing the debt as an obligation on our parents. Even though rangatahi are entitled to these provisions as citizens of the state, these decisions were made without RSP even being in place, yet under RSP the situation could become the enforced norm. For our country dealing with the cost of living crisis without rules, the supermarkets will not bring the prices of food down by themselves. Their first priority is making money for their owners, which fits the purpose of RSP, not ensuring people have access to kai. I want to be here to the 156,879 people who made powerful submissions in the resistance to this racist bill. The multitudes of people who donate their time, their expertise and their aroha to fighting for the kaupapa only to be ignored. This government won't listen to you, but the Pāti Māori have heard you. We will get rid of this government in 2026 and the Regulatory Standards Bill along with it. Kia ora tātou.
Francisco Hernandez.
Thank you.
Hold on a moment.
You cut him off there. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the principles opposed in the bill, right? We've gone over those principles, which is rule of law, liberty, sacred property, taxes, fees, and levies, role of courts, and good lawmaking, right? Basically, what this bill does is it performs a selective cut and paste of the New Zealand Constitution by omitting fundamental or foundational principles such as the spirit and principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, international obligations, and the full scope of the principle of legality and human rights. So basically what you've got with this bill is a new hierarchical framework for lawmaking. The principles in the bill will become the primary standards for official accountability and independent scrutiny, while the omitted bills, though still legally important, are demoted to secondary status within the system this bill creates. So basically you've got not all principles are created equal by the sounds of things. Some principles are more equal than others.
Yeah.
It is. I know this. I know this bill can get really, really dry and boring at times. It is a policy wonkery bill that you have to go, okay, how do I simplify this? How do I simplify this? How do I simplify this? And the reality is because it's so full of stuff that there's only so much you can simplify before you oversimplify. And people go, oh, well, that's what that means. So it's like, no, not completely. And you go, and then you've got to make it complex again. And then you've got to try and explain. And it's like, oh, God. Yeah, it's...
Going around and around and around and around and around. And probably at the rate it's going, you might as well sit there and drive via Palmerston North and Levin to get to Wellington from your place instead of the Remutuckers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Closed.
But yeah, the key thing that I try to focus on is how's it going to impact the public? Because that's you can get really lost in the weed with this bill because there's so many angles you can attack it from. That I think the priority when you're dealing with a bill like the Regulatory Standards Bill is to focus on its impact on the public because they're the ones that you are the guys that are doing the submissions on it.
Yeah. Okay. We're off to our next bill now.
Oh, I'm tiny.
The way you kicked it off was what's led to this, but that's all good. Mistakes happen. We fix things up. Okay, so the next bill we're moving on is the Fast Track Approvals Bill, where, as you might have gathered, Arena Williams basically calls Chris Bishop out.
Alrighty. We like a Chris Bishop.
I present a legislative statement on the Fast Track Approvals Amendment Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the parliamentary website. I will call the member in a minute. Sorry.
say, everyone's hugging my cuzzy over there.
Done. Goodness me.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. That's good. Go
It
outside.
was after the maiden speech.
I call on the Honourable
yes.
Chris Bishop.
I move that the amendment, the fast track approvals amendment bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Environment Select Committee to consider the bill. Mr. Speaker, it's very pleasing to introduce this amendment bill for the Fast Track Approvals Act to promote supermarket competition and to improve the application process so it's more efficient for all fast track projects. Mr. Speaker, the government's making this change to make it clear to the grocery retail sector that projects that will improve competition are within fast track scope. There's a range of technical and machinery amendments that are also aimed at speeding up the application process by up to 6 weeks or potentially more in some cases. The aim of the changes is to cumulatively reduce timeframes, lower costs, improve flexibility and clarify operational matters. Mr. Speaker, Fast Track was designed to offer a streamlined alternative to convoluted RMA-based consenting processes and also to establish a one-stop shop regime. That means large or complex projects can now make a simple application for multiple consents, permissions and approvals. There's been a steady stream of applications since February this year and several large projects gaining final approval from independent expert panels. There is real appetite for the fast track approvals process and the government's very proud about how it's working. It's worth noting it's not the first time the Parliament has authorised a fast track regime. The previous government had its own version. We think our version's better, but two versions, okay. Well, we think our version's triply better than the member reading out her version. We are happy with how it's going so far, but our view is that there are a range of process-based improvements that can be made. We've consulted with applicants, agencies, councils and actually the expert or the panel conveners themselves around improving the operational efficiency of the Act. In terms of the grocery retail developments, as I think all members know, we're focused on creating the conditions for enduring improvements to grocery competition to benefit consumers. Grocery retailers are not excluded from fast-track applications, but we have heard that potential grocery retailers are not confident their projects will be eligible. So the bill includes proposals to remove barriers to entry and expansion of new competitors by making it easier to get consents for new supermarkets. The changes clarify that improving regional or national competition in the grocery industry is a valid factor the Minister for Infrastructure can consider in referral decisions, and expert panels must have regard to the Minister's reasons for referring an application, including those relating to grocery competition. The bill proposes a general power to issue government policy statements, including on grocery retail competition, which the Minister for Infrastructure and expert panels must consider when making project decisions. We're also making changes to the eligibility criteria for the multi-proof approvals regime to support both grocery developments and developments in other sectors with more streamlined building consenting. Timeframes for approvals will vary case by case, but we do expect the streamlined approach. Grocery developments could obtain necessary consents and resource management approvals in a year or less after formal lodgement. The Commerce Commission's recent annual grocery report tells us it takes, on average, 18 months and $1 million to obtain consent for a new supermarket, which, when you think about it, is totally nuts. Well, we're fixing that. Watch the space. But 18 months and $1 million for a new supermarket, I think, is frankly nuts, Mr. Speaker, and indefensible. In relation to the technical and machinery improvements, the description of this undersells the fact that combined effect will be to make fast track more operationally and procedurally efficient. Our estimates are it will take at least 6 weeks, potentially more, out of the current statutorily prescribed processes. The referral process for projects approved for referral currently takes on average of 71 working days, and the substantive stage takes on average of 130 working days. Process improvements could reduce this further. It's probably not the right place to give a comprehensive overview of the amendments here. They are summarised in the legislative statement and in the bill itself. But I would summarise their intent, Mr. Speaker, by saying the aim is to reduce process time and complexities. So, for example, the amendments will allow part of the process to occur in parallel where that makes sense. Will also give applicants and other users more clarity on what information is required at various application stages. They will allow applicants to address information gaps during the earlier stages of the process. The amendments include proposals to reduce the scope for projects to be rejected on procedural grounds if part of the application is withdrawn. It proposes applications can be granted conditionally without planned future infrastructure, such as roads and services being completed. And proposals in the bill will clarify that Schedule 2 listed projects are nationally or regionally significant. This will allow expert panels to focus on the adverse impacts and whether or not they outweigh the project's benefits and reduce unnecessary litigation. Several technical amendments are proposed by MFE, Ministry of the Environment, Department of Conservation and MB, which include correcting lapsing rules, aligning reporting obligations and resolving inconsistencies in a variety of provisions. And we are also fixing the issue around the Stellar Passage development at the Port of Tauranga to make sure that that project description is rightly aligned with what the project is, following a recent High Court case. Amendments that do not require system changes, such as the grocery competition-related amendments, will come into force on the day after the date of royal assent. Amendments that require post-enactment updates to systems and processes could be in place by February 26 to allow time for implementation. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the government agencies involved in drafting the bill for their continued efforts. I also want to thank all those who engaged in a bit of a process we ran to suggest improvements for engaging or using fast track. This is relatively straightforward, simple amendment bill that we want to get through the House so that we can make those machinery and technical improvements to make sure that people can continue to benefit from the great work that Fast Track is doing. Commend the bill to the House.
So I want to figure out where the hell this lollies are coming from.
Oh, fuck the lollies. It's just a box that the backbenchers share around each other, and I go,
Oh no, because it's quite funny, because when they mention fruit bursts, I could give them these.
Yeah, no, they've got a box. They've got a full box there. It's like a Tupperware container that they share around. Usually on the backbenches, so it's full of lolly scramble stuff and fruit bursts and stuff. And I always said it's funny because Nicola Willis is always talking about how there's no lolly scramble here, and it's like, I found the lolly scramble box. What are you talking about? But anyways, look, I may be tired and I may have drunk too much again. But here's the thing. Here's what I spotted. Nowhere does Chris Bishop say, explain or present an argument. How will fast tracking reduce prices? Where? I've read the findings from the competition market study in supermarket. I put that in the chat. Now I'm going to refer to my notes. There is no formal fast track recommendation. Nowhere in that report. Okay? It doesn't even say that fast tracking is going to reduce the prices. The report's entire approach is based on a form of prioritized implementation. The Commission advocates for promptly enacting the main suite of recommendations to improve competition conditions. So nowhere does it mention fast tracking, but it says if after 3 years as per recommendation 14. So if you, I'm going to put this in the chat now so people can look at recommendation 14. Everyone's talking about lollies in the chat. Stop it.
Sorry, Pascal's does still make the wine gums, as I've just found out.
Stop it. My Ritlin's run out and you're distracting me. Okay. Then the government should consider more direct and invasive interventions like divestiture or government-sponsored entry. So, hey, look, they're saying that, after a couple of years, if our recommendations don't really work, maybe you should look at getting a state-run supermarket. Maybe that will help with the prices and the competition.
Well, I mean, it's been suggested that we get a state-run insurance provider. I mean, we used to have one as a result of the Napier earthquake known as called State Insurance, but was sold off to a company known as AIG in the 90s or the 2000s.
I love the fact that you know random stuff that no one knows what you're referring to.
But everyone knows the brand State Insurance.
Oh, yes, everyone knows that.
Yeah, and the reason why
old people know
State
that.
Insurance started was the 1931 Napier earthquake.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I say, random piece of fact that actually has a bit of logic behind it.
It's got logic behind it. I just don't know what you're referencing half the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's also what later brought in what we know was known as the Earthquake and Wartime Commission.
Geez, now that's a little factoid I don't have in the back of my brain.
Oh yes, but the original EQC had wartime on the end of it because it was born out of World War II.
Yes, I love your little random factoids. They're great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the Supermarket Commission report, and let's talk about the problem of fast tracking. So the potential problem with fast tracking is that a major grocery retailer, and I'm sure Kiwi Skirt in the chat can correct me on this, but the logic here is that a major grocery retailer, because Chris Bishop didn't state what supermarket companies are being fast tracked.
Yeah.
So they could apply to have a new supermarket declared a fast track project. And if approved, it would be built quickly, potentially cementing its market position in a new area, making it harder for new startup local supermarkets to find viable sites. Therefore, reinforcing the existing duopoly the grocery report sought to weaken.
Now, here's a great example. Now, would Plenty Food, which is opening up in Upper Hutt, be classed as eligible for fast-track consent?
Good question. Are they being fast-tracked? Because I know there's two routes.
So.
I know there's two routes to being fast-tracked.
I don't think Plenty Foods were benefited from fast track at all. Yeah. But Plenty Foods is just basically it's a brand to compete in Upper Hutt. The company also owns I think Super Save in Nainai.
Right. Okay.
And Nainai is what would be termed a New Zealand version of Food Desert, because Nainai does not actually have a foodstuffs or a progressive supermarket brand in their community.
Yeah. So this is a problem with the fast tracking process, right? The government has already made up a list of specific projects, right? It's in their bill. They can skip the normal line and use the fast lane.
Yeah.
A special panel decides instead of your local council or multiple agencies. So a small, specially appointed group of experts, a panel, makes the final decision.
Yep.
How resilient or how resistant are they against lobbying? I don't know. But I do know that under the fast tracking, right, limited public say. And I did post you a clip from the Current Affair about fast tracking in Australia. Farmers are finding that right now. They do not have the power to veto a mining project in their backyard.
Yeah.
That's
Shall
what's
we
happening.
sit there and see the current affairs thing from Australia?
Because it's a lot better than policy wonkery. People need to see it. And just, by the way, before you play it, replace the word farmer.
Enough to deal with.
With
Will it
Māori.
rain? Will it be enough? What price will my crop or herd get? It is a tough gig. Now these farmers have a new threat and could lose it all in the rush to mine rare earth minerals.
There we go. This one.
They're just wiping farming families off the map.
We produce some of the best crops worldwide, so why would you want to take that away?
If they mine this land, it will be lost forever.
This is the Donald Mineral Sands mine site, so they plan to dig this land down to about 25 metres deep. And the road we're standing next to here will be mining trucks and traffic for the next 30, 40 years.
When farmers speak up, we should listen. They know our land. They've farmed it for 150 years. So why is no one hearing them when they say,
don't destroy it, because once it's gone, it's gone.
Okay, so why is no one hearing the farmers? Because if a corporation wants something, they're going to find a way to fucking take it. Doesn't matter what occupation you work in. Doesn't matter what the colour of your skin is. If you're sitting on something that a corporation wants, they're going to find a way to get it.
Yeah.
Continue playing.
Ryan Milgate will soon see a rare earth mineral mine out of his kitchen window. Paul Trotter will watch it slowly creep up to his home, turfing out his family. David and his parents, Peter and Mari Byrne, have already been offered money to sell. David's a fifth-generation Minyip crop farmer in the heart of the Wheat Belt, a small town 3.5 hours northwest of Melbourne.
This is truly prime agricultural land, what we are on here.
Home is where you can hear the birds sing and ride the same tracks your ancestors did.
That's the true meaning of it, really.
But these homes and farms sit atop a deposit of critical minerals and rare earth elements needed to power renewable energy and make household items like batteries, phones
national project
and paint.
Significance.
Astron Limited plans to mine more than 1,000 hectares of this land, making it the 4th largest rare earth project in the world outside China.
I try every day, and I try to think of a better future for the kids and another place, but yeah, I can't.
They want to mine on prime agricultural land, and Canberra's not standing in their way. They're fast-tracking it.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Australia.
A day after this handshake, the mine was given major project status by the Australian government and took away any hope these farmers had.
It was gut-wrenching.
Sarah's raising 4 kids on her husband's family farm, where the lemon trees are antiques.
I sort of feel like the government's against us, against farmers at the moment, and we have nothing. No one is helping us.
Digging at the mine is set to start in 2027, and 7,000 tonnes of Aussie earth will be sent to Utah in the United States every year.
They're trying to just pick out all this prime food bowl country and turn it into a mine and give all the money overseas at the cost of the people that have built the country.
Ryan's family found their place here back in 1873. Now he's the Victorian Farmers Federation Grains President.
Australia is giving their lunch money to the school bully, and that school bully is now going and sharing it with the other school bully, and we're left going hungry.
My father fought for this country, and for what? To supply and look after other countries and multinational companies.
We want to stay here. I'm 80 in a couple of months' time. I never dreamt I'd be doing what I'm doing right now.
The worst bit, they can only say no for so long.
They say they can't compulsorily acquire it, but at the end of the day, it becomes a financial transaction.
We're just
they
talking
either
about
lease it
the
or they
regulatory
buy it.
standards bill.
So they'll get it one way or the other.
Yep.
Victorian farmers are now lobbying the state with a petition.
Okay, so the Marine Customary Act, okay, petition farmers' land access veto rights, okay? For iwi and hapu, we had those veto rights. The amendments, right, that they were just talking about before, and when what's the full name of the bill again? The Customary Marine Titles Act, right, is looking to strip that back. The ability for hapu to go, no, we don't want a mining operation here, right? So again, this is why I say before that skin color doesn't really play a thing into this, or ethnicity doesn't play a thing into this. So when you've got government saying, look at all these Maoris, look at all these greedy Maoris with their special rights and everyone should be equal and stuff, they don't care. At the end of the day, if you're sitting on something that a corporation wants, they will find a way to get it, okay? Farmers in this area don't have the ability to veto this, okay? Just like how Māori, we don't have the ability anymore to veto mining operations. It's the same shit. And you look at the West Coast, what's happening down there with the gold mining and stuff like that, the coal, expanding that, and the fact that we're going to have more acid in the river, more acidic waters and stuff like that, is going to impact public infrastructure. Okay? It's going to impact the health and well-being of citizens. And this is why I say collective well-being, equality and equity go hand in hand together. Okay? Because you're hurting the farmers when you're going, right, individual property rights, the mining company can do more mining. Fuck you, Mr. Farmer. Fuck you, iwi and hapu. The same thing is going to happen to farmers, what's happened to Māori. This is like a crystal ball that we're watching right here. Right? Wine producers on the West Coast, right? Or people that live downstream from the gold mines. They're going to be impacted and they won't have the ability to veto it. We're talking about fancy, wonky, wine guzzling, and we're talking about American people down there too, by the way. A lot of them are American. Here's
the part that gets me is they want to send off this dirt to Utah.
Yeah, they're going to send it to America. They're going to send it to Utah.
Now they're sending the dirt to Utah, or are they sending the refined part of the dirt to Utah?
I think they're sending the dirt to Utah, which is even worse because they don't have local jobs processing the minerals. It's all being sent off to America. And you probably got Elon Musk going, rolling in the
like evil Mr. Burns.
Yes. So, again, this is what Rawiri was saying before, okay? Indigenous people are very, very important canaries in the coal mine. When you see them get fucked over, same with immigrant workers, when you see them get fucked over, you're next.
Yeah. Oh, let's see more from it.
Petition to change legislation.
Over in WA, farmers have more rights than what we do here in Victoria, so they have the right to say no.
Sarah is passionate about farmers' rights to veto. Her 12-year-old son, Riley, is all the inspiration she needs. He learned to drive a tractor sitting on his pa's lap.
I want to be a farmer. I'd like to take over this farm from my pa.
But if their land is mined, what will Riley be left with? If it's anything like this former Victorian mine site, it's no future.
They're saying it's rehabilitated, but it's not.
The farmers there are really smart, resilient, excellent farmers, and they can't get anything to grow on this land.
Farmers out here say if this is all gone, mined, it ain't coming back. So what do Australians think of a food bowl that produces no food?
Oh, it's absolutely a waste. Like, to turn it into substandard or possibly a wasteland is just an absolute travesty.
We used to just worry about the weather.
Now they must worry about contamination of their water supply and their crops if they're to coexist with the mine until it's ready to take their land too.
The radioactive materials that are being mined, how do we know that's not going to go on the roof and go into our water?
Good question!
We put 11 questions to Astron, asked for an interview twice, but they refused, saying, "We've considered your request carefully. However, we don't believe the format allows sufficient scope for balanced examination."
Astron have never dug a shovel full of dirt in their life. So that's what we really struggle. How can you tell us you know what you're doing when you've literally never done it?
Astron says some areas of significance won't be mined, like where these bull oak trees stand.
That's a sacred spot, which is fair enough, but I think this little area here where I've brought up our family is pretty sacred too.
From barley and wheat to beans and lentils, these farmers put food in our bowls. But for how much longer?
I think it's the greatest job in the world. I love it. I love every bit of it. But yeah, this part's, it's wearing us down. Yeah.
We've sent a formal invite to the Prime Minister, and we want him to actually come here and have a look at that deal that he signed at the White House, what it actually means to the people here.
Okay, so that's your crystal ball, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's coming to New Zealand very soon. As a result of this fast track legislation, it doesn't. It's like, and this is Labour Australia that's giving the thumbs up to this. What the hell is going on?
And also in a Labour stronghold state, because Victoria, the coalition over there is. If you watch the Sloan Zone, Victoria, the coalition has got no shit show in hell of actually ever probably regaining government again.
Oh, don't worry, Paul. The irony is not lost on me. And now the same thing that happened to Indigenous people is now happening to farmers. Thanks to the mining companies and people like Elon Musk.
The fast track legislation bill is actually open for submissions. Laura, are you able to put the link in the chat so we can mass flood the approvals into the systems to say this is an example of when veto rights are taken away in Victoria, and use the current affair article as something in there, because you'll get the likes of actually who is on the Agricultural Committee. That's a good point, but yeah.
Is it currently in the select committee process?
Yes, it is. Submissions are open.
Can you give me the link for that, and then I can post it?
It is in the run sheet.
Let me just have a look on the run sheet. But yeah, keep
down the bottom of the run sheet. Yeah.
Keep talking. I'll go find it. So what? Okay, so with a lot of that stuff, right? You can make so many parallels, so many damn parallels to what's going to happen here in New Zealand with fast tracking.
Yeah.
Let me just get that link, folks.
I've got it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. So you can click on that if you want to make a submission against the fast track approvals amendment bill. Now, to be fair, the fast track approvals amendment bill is about supermarkets. But
no. You've got to watch more of the speeches to go through.
Oh, it's not just about supermarkets?
No, it's a bit about that's the Trojan horse. So let's get on to Rachel Brooking's speech.
Okay, all right. Fill me in. But anyways, there you go. Now you've got a practical example in your skulls about what could happen with fast tracking.
Yeah.
Honourable Rachel Brooking.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for this opportunity to speak on the bill. Now, the Minister has talked about in all the press releases and the front page of this bill talk about groceries and supermarkets an awful lot. And Mr Speaker, on the Labour Party, we totally agree. Do everything that we can to stop or to create more competition for our grocery sector. That is a good thing to be doing. That is something that we worked on in government, and I commend this government if they're continuing to do some of the work. Good. However, most of this bill is not about that issue. Most of this bill is not about the groceries. It's not about the supermarkets.
This bill is a Trojan horse, Mr. Speaker, for watering down even more this government's version of the fast track. What it is doing, as we all know, that Shane Jones is a big proponent of the fast track, and this government's fast track, which is quite different from the two previous fast tracks, because it overrides environmental protections.
Oh, there you go.
When the fast track bill was introduced, it was going to have ministerial oversight. And Mr. Speaker, there were huge protests in the streets. In Auckland, you could have been at Aotea Square and people were already down the bottom of Queen Street near Britomart. There were that many people protesting. And to give some credit to this government, they did listen a little bit and they changed those provisions around the ministerial approval. Then, in the select committee process, there was a lot of work on how it was that expert panels were going to work. How were they going to get as much evidence as was relevant to enable a fast process, but also one that enabled the decision makers to make some reasonably robust decisions. I would say not nearly robust enough, because we, of course, opposed that fast track bill because it was overriding environmental regulations and overriding community plans. What this bill does is moves that step closer to Shane Jones' original idea, which is the ministers having the say. And they have that say by referring projects or having already put them on the 149 listed projects. So where a little bit of that, where there was a little bit of rigour, not sure if you can say a little bit of rigour, but there was something akin to rigour, was that the expert panels, who are appointed to be experts, that they had some discretion to ask for other people to give them information and evidence. And, Mr. Speaker, we now have had the fast track in place, this government's version of the fast track in place for some time, and we have seen some annoyance from Minister Shane Jones about the fact that expert panels have been asking for evidence, for more information. And that has meant that their decisions have not always been exactly what Minister Shane Jones has wanted. So now what this bill is doing is removing that ability, the one little check in the system for those expert panels to ask for additional evidence and for different groups to come and give them information. That discretion is gone burger with this amendment. So this is not just a simple little bill that's just doing a little bit of fixing up and we don't need to worry about it, because really it's about good supermarket changes. It is not that. And if it was only about supermarket changes, Madam Speaker, we would be in support of it. The Minister has said the supermarkets have asked for, or potential supermarkets have asked for this, that it would be helpful. We would be in support of it. We are in support of fast tracking when environmental protections are not overridden, and that is our track record. So I'm deeply disappointed once again by this government's continued cynical approach of combining something that's a little bit good with something that is disastrous. We support the grocery provisions, but we do not support the rest of this bill.
Okay.
Well, I hate all of it, so I disagree with Rachel there. But so let's break down the bad things about this bill. So this amendment bill, right? For starters, you're going to have less of a say. This is the biggest change for most people. If a project is proposed in your backyard, you lose the right to a public hearing. Your ability to influence the decision is significantly reduced. So we saw that with the farmers in Australia. Same thing's going to happen here.
Yep.
Now, environmental risks are going to increase. So the rules are designed to push projects through. This means a project might even be approved, or might be approved even if it has negative effects on your local river, your beach, or native bush, because its national benefits are considered more important. Again, we saw that with the Australian farmers with the mining companies, right?
Yeah.
Changes to your favourite spots. You got a favourite hangout? Too bad. This law makes it easier to build on protected conservation land in some cases. That favourite hiking spot or scenic reserve that you really, really like could potentially have a road, power line, or other infrastructure built through it. So, yeah, it feels done to you, not done with you, right? This is actually more authoritarian than what we currently have, right? And David Seymour's regulatory standards bill is adding fuel to this fire. This process is less democratic than what we currently have. Decisions are made by central government an appointed panel, not your local council who you can vote for and who knows your community. So again, people ask me why you're a libertarian socialist, because I actually believe in small government in the case, in the sense of councils, community boards, people who are making decisions, who actually live there and listening to the people who live there and pay their taxes and rates.
Yeah.
I don't like it when big government or central government comes in and said, yep, we're going to put a mine over there.
Okay, let's get on to my local MP, Julian Genter.
The Honourable Julian Genter.
Tēnā koe, Madam Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare. As my colleague Rachel Brooking so eloquently laid out, so much of what this government does is putting up some positive spin, some smoke and mirrors, and their real agenda is simply allowing corporates and those who have the most to benefit and profit at the public expense. And that includes environmental damage as well as public cost. We see that as a pattern happening over and over again. And however reasonable Minister Bishop might be on some urban planning issues, when it comes to solving the issue of supermarket competition, this is not the way to do it. The Green Party will not be supporting this bill. Fast track is not good public policy. It is not the best way to ensure we have good planning rules. And there are many other tools available to the minister and the government, which they could have easily pursued. But they always choose to go with something that is kind of like taking a hacksaw to cutting a loaf of bread, and they're quite happy to overdo it, to create a tool that allows far too much discretion, and it's very, very clear that this is not going to result in inclusive, transparent decision-making that we need, respecting the role of Te Whātua Whenua as kaitiaki, and enabling us to protect the things that matter most, which include life, Indigenous biodiversity, which is life, a stable climate, and all of that. So amendments in this bill only worsen the nature of the fast-track approvals process. It does not provide a credible solution. Now, what they could have done, because this does exist and it's been done, is have a national policy statement on supermarket developments. They have done this for housing in the past. We can do it for increasing housing around rapid transit. We could do it for other things. Having a national policy statement was a simple fix that could have addressed any issues. We don't have to go through an undemocratic fast-track process. But, you know, it's pretty clear what the agenda of this coalition government is. It's not good planning law. It's not protecting the environment. It's not protecting ordinary workers or communities or those most likely to live in poverty. It is enabling private profit at the expense of public good. And that's what the fast track process is all about. It is all about enabling private corporations to run roughshod over communities, over our precious natural environment, to have limited or no oversight over what's done. They really just want a rubber stamp for companies to do whatever the heck they want. And they'll pretend that this is somehow going to benefit people. Well, there's a whole lot of smart policy that we could be implementing that would genuinely benefit those who are struggling with the high cost of living. And the Green Party has laid out a comprehensive alternative approach in our Green budget, which shows that we could improve the incomes for the vast majority of New Zealanders, ensure everybody had a sustainable living income, you know, no matter what their employment status is. We could make sure that the wealthiest people in this country pay their fair share in tax, and that would enable us to invest in the core public services that people need. And when it comes to supermarket competition, it's actually the Green Party who has long called for measures to address this, like an ombudsman, which we proposed like well over a decade ago. There's so much that could be done, but really it's going through the fast track process is not necessary nor sufficient to deliver more affordable prices on food and other goods that are sold in supermarkets. So we see through this, and I think most New Zealanders do, and that's reflected in their very poor polling, the absolute lack of trust in the Prime Minister, who is one of those people who benefits the most from the government's policies, like not taxing capital gains. You know, it's a party, three parties for the wealthy and sordid, for the wealthy donors, for the mining companies, for those that would destroy the environment that our life depends on, simply to make a few extra bucks, while there's a whole host of people who are living barely able to get by in this country. And government's going to be changing.
Again, do we have to play that Australian video again about what the impacts of fast tracking is going to look like if you're a farmer?
Oh.
I mean, we can play it again, or if you're Maori, or anything else. If you work in fisheries or forestry or anything like that.
Here's actually something where Julian actually does make a good point about like is fast track the answer, because here's something that's happening, and it's happening in Wellington quite a fair bit, is the glut of empty commercial properties. And the empty commercial properties would be much better options that you could fulfill potential supermarkets versus building one from scratch. But also probably what needs to be done is how you deal with it. So I was part of a what was called a panel on the Wellington District Plan, chaired by, before she became the Deputy Mayor, Laurie Foon, and in that panel had foodstuffs in there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things hearing from foodstuffs was the problems they had was with district plans was it didn't take into account for things like delivery entrances and exits for trucks.
Yep.
So they would often, so they may have a consent declined because they haven't set, because they can't sit there and say, you know, have a side of the wall, a side to have your trucks go in and out of. That sort of thing. And that sort of stuff was in district planning rules. Now, that would be something that would be wise, that could be tied up, especially if you got a particular district plan rule that states that three sides of a road where a supermarket sits can't have has to treat all of it as stop frontage, not delivery access. Now a good example is in Wellington is the Woolworths, which was a well-designed supermarket, has the fact that they have a loading dock that you load in from Adelaide Road, you load out.
I just want to point out a key difference here. What you're saying and what central government is proposing.
Yeah.
That panel, you had locals contributing to it.
Correct, yes. And the foodstuff rep was actually local.
So you had a platform.
Yes.
To talk for members of the public, to talk to corporations and business owners and stuff like that. With this, it's actually removing that. So
correct, that is correct, yeah.
So so that's the right way to do a thing like a fast tracking process. You know, you get the community on board, you get a panel, and you get we go through all this, we iron out all the kinks and everything. The wrong way to do it is to not have that participation. There's a lot of and that's really scary. And I think this is one of the key things. One of the key results of what happens when you have the public that's not getting out there and doing things like voting. It is basically what happens is that if you've got an apathetic community, it gives room for a central government to come in and go, we're doing this.
Yeah. And there are some people who advocate for that when they feel like they're not being heard.
Like, for example, you know, you got the Regulatory Standards Bill, which is talking about individual property rights, corporations, right? And then you've got this bill that's going to limit the public's ability to say no, right?
Yeah.
What does this look like to you? To me, and I don't say slightly, it looks like rolling out the carpet for fascism, which is why I've always said that neoliberal economics rolls out the carpet to things like authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Seeing that right now in places like America, where workers and other people are losing their rights by the day. They're losing the ability to give feedback and to participate in their democratic system, which is being eroded away for corporate interests.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, that's crazy leftist talk. Do we have to play the video again of what's happening in Australia?
Yeah.
The farmers have lost the right to say no.
Now, let's get on to Nikki. No boats, no supermarket in a suburb of Northland.
Approval's amendment bill because it will support grocery competition and thereby enable better deals for Kiwi shoppers. This bill helps to create an express lane for new supermarkets to boost competition in the grocery sector. The amendments in this bill make it clear to those considering opening new supermarkets that their projects are within the fast-track regime scope if they improve competition. These changes to clarify eligibility are about easing the barriers that we've been told are holding back competition in our grocery market. We're doing this because Kiwi shoppers need and deserve greater competition so they can benefit from lower prices and more choice. And this bill is a step towards achieving that. Madam Speaker, the New Zealand Commerce Commission has found that competition in the New Zealand grocery sector is limited. The sector is highly concentrated, with the major grocery retailers, Woolworths and Foodstuffs North and South Island, making up 82% of the market. While they have different banners and brands underneath them, essentially we have a duopoly in our supermarket sector in New Zealand, which contributes to less affordable groceries for everyday Kiwis. And the limited competition also means Kiwi shoppers have less choice about where they shop and face higher prices at the checkout compared with other countries. You can choose between a Pack and Save and a New World, but ultimately they're both foodstuffs. You can choose between a Woolworths and a Fresh Choice, but ultimately they're both Woolworths. We want more real, genuine choice for New Zealand shoppers, because when we look around the world, the countries that have more choice also have more affordable options for their people. Right now, New Zealand consumers spend more on groceries than in Australia and the UK, with our grocery expenditure the 5th highest per person in the developed world. Earlier this year, I ran a request for information process. What I wanted to know was, what is holding back those investors or retailers who might otherwise be able to offer a competitive alternative in this sector? We asked them, what would help you as a challenger take on the major grocery retailers? Because we get it. It's a big task. When you've got two behemoths that you're up against that have massive market power, it's a pretty tough undertaking to say, I'm going to enter that market and compete and win. So our position was, if the government has created any barriers or red tape or regulations that are making that task even harder, we have a responsibility to tear that red tape down and ensure we're not standing in the way of competition. Now, we can't compel a new investor to come into New Zealand and start a new supermarket chain. That is not within our powers. What we can do is say to those investors who might be considering it, we are on your side and we will get rid of anything that may be standing in your way that is within the control of government. So when we did the request for information process, we got detailed, granular feedback about some of the issues that do currently stand in the way. And we heard loud and clear, there was a lot of frustration with restrictive zoning. Restrictive zoning that in many parts of the country says there's only this tiny envelope of land in which you are actually allowed to build a commercial retailer, in which you could actually build a supermarket. There may be a huge amount of land in New Zealand that's zoned for other purposes, be it housing or farming or commercial development, but actually in a lot of regions in this country, we actively, currently, because of the Resource Management Act, restrict where people can buy land that can be developed for a supermarket. That's crazy. Because actually what we should be saying is when it comes to the abundant land we have in our towns and regions, and we're thinking about how we could use that in a good way, one of the best ways it can be used is to ensure that Kiwi shoppers are getting a better deal. And that's what this fast-track change is all about. It's not, of course, just the consenting, it's a bunch of other cumbersome regulations that make it difficult for new competitors to gain a foothold, and we are addressing those too. We think it is unconscionable to keep in place...
Members' time has expired.
Oh, am I? What I thought it was a 10-minute. Cool.
The Honourable Priyanka.
Just also to put some note in there, she basically steamrolled over to Party Māori's speaking slot.
Yeah, don't worry, Nikki. I also go over time, but at least I can present an argument. Sorry, that was a bit catty of me. But yes, again, the same problem with Christopher Bishop's argument. Where is the evidence that fast tracking will reduce prices? Where is the evidence that groups like Foodstuffs are not just going to go, oh, yay, let's get fast tracked and let's minimize the amount of competition we have? Where's that? I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of that. I didn't hear any of that in the speech. And again, going over the research that the Labour government funded, the findings from the competition market study in supermarkets, nowhere does it even suggest doing this to reduce prices. Again, and here's the other kicker, right? Because I was looking at some of the amendments being proposed for the Regulatory Standards Bill, right? At the moment, foreign-owned companies, right? We're talking about CEOs from other countries who are not citizens here in New Zealand, can complain to the Regulatory Standards Board. They can, they're not living here. They're not citizens. Why do they have? They're not permanent residents. Why do they have the ability to do that?
Yeah,
why do they have the ability to dictate the direction of New Zealand law? Like, you got people like New Zealand First going, oh, we're going to put New Zealand First. Where? New Zealand First where? Hello? Shouldn't people be permanent residents or citizens to complain to the board?
Yeah, well, considering James Meeker wanted to have that put in because of the onslaught of the treaty principles bills on the Justice Select Committee when he was chair.
Oh right, okay. Well,
that was something he was considering suggesting.
Yeah, well, it looks like National ignored him. I hate it when that happens. But yes, the fact that we could potentially be paying them out, the government could be potentially paying out the taxpayers, right? It's like, oh, hello, Mr. Foreign CEO from China. Sorry, we did this thing that impacted your profitability. Here's your money. Like, no. What are we doing?
Yeah.
We've got a party called National and another party called New Zealand First, and they're not putting New Zealand's interests first, and they're not taking our national concerns into interest.
Exactly, yeah. But yes, does Nikki know? Was it Nikki no time left? Did she not realise that on first reading speeches, only the first 2 speeches are 10 minutes, the rest are 5?
Don't worry, I forget to. But anyways, it's just.
You look like she was about to sit there and have a whole argument with the speaker over it.
Yeah, that would be funny. Bring out the ladies for that. Yeah, I'm.
But I'm a national member. Why can't you sit there and do that, Madam Assistant Speaker? You're national.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wish we could have fast-tracked his speech, I'll be quite honest. I would have given approval for that.
Okay, let's get to Priyanka Rodikrishna before we call it a night.
Yep.
Now, anyone listening to the speeches in this House would be forgiven for thinking that according to Nicola Willis, Chris Bishop and Shane Jones, this bill is just about creating a consenting express lane for new supermarkets to improve grocery competition. Sadly, that's not what it's about. That's not all that it's about. If it was really just about addressing the grocery duopoly, as Nicola Willis was waxing lyrical about just now, and putting in place the framework for more competition in the grocery sector, if it was about that, if it was about bringing food prices down, we would be supporting this bill, Madam Speaker. In fact, Labour in government started that work 5 years ago in 2020 when we asked the Commerce Commission to carry out a study about grocery competition, whether it's working well enough, and to give us recommendations. Now, this government has sat on those recommendations for the entire time that they've been in office for the past 2 years, done absolutely nothing about that, and then bring in this bill claiming that it's going to fix the issues within the grocery sector. But that's not just what this bill does. It's a Trojan horse, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that continues this government's war on nature by stealth. And it makes about 100 other changes that none of the members on the government benches have bothered to address in their speeches. In June this year, Madam Speaker, over 20,000 people marched the streets to protest the fast-track bill. They said, many of them said, that it would put Aotearoa on a fast track to environmental destruction. Many called it the biggest fight for New Zealand's environment in a generation. Part of the reason for that overwhelming lack of support or opposition to that bill was that the bill, as it was initially designed, Madam Speaker, would have concentrated power in the hands of 3 ministers who could then override the decisions of their own expert panel and put in place whatever infrastructure projects they wanted to do that would run roughshod over environmental protections. It would also ignore the concerns of local communities in Mana Whenua, and for all those reasons, Madam Speaker, 20,000 people marched the streets. After that, they made one little change. They reversed that and said that expert panels would be able to override the decisions of the ministers. That was a good change that they made. Still flawed. It still overrides environmental protections, but at least they made that one little change. One of the specific projects that people had an issue with is the Trans-Tasman Resources seabed mine in Taranaki. And the central tenet of the fast-track legislation is the facilitation of projects with significant regional or national benefits, but it does not require independent analysis of the proposals to weigh those benefits against the associated costs, which is ridiculous. If it's approved, that particular seabed mine project would be the world's first at-scale commercial seabed mine that would destroy the habitat and the ecosystem that many of our critically endangered species, including Maui and Hector's dolphins, rely on, Madam Speaker. It's been rejected by the Supreme Court. It has been, there have been significant concerns raised by the Environment Protection Agency about it. And the sad thing is, you would think at least that they would have sound economic analysis or argument for that particular project. It doesn't. Even experts in the mining industry have said that their evaluations and their analysis is flawed. Now, the amendment that's being introduced today, that we are debating today in the House, will introduce 100 changes that will give ministers much more power over the consenting process. It will mean that the expert panel will struggle to get the information they need to make better decisions. It reduces the amount of time that the expert panel can make those decisions within, and it limits the right to appeal those decisions. So it brings back the concentration of power that people marched on the streets for by stealth. We would have supported this if it was just about grocery competition and increasing competition in the grocery sector, but this is really about a Prime Minister who cannot keep his coalition partners in check. Shane Jones has been vocal about his opposition to the Environmental Protection Agency, and sadly now these ministers and the Prime Minister have caved once again the way that they did with the Haraki bill. They're rolling over to Shane Jones. For all those reasons, and for the fact that it's another blow to the environment and local communities, as ENGOs have said, Madam Speaker, we cannot support this bill.
Catherine Weed.
Look, I think it's kind of interesting that Labour's saying, oh, we support the supermarket, but can anyone please explain to me how fast tracking will reduce the prices of bread and milk,
It won't.
butter and mince?
That's why. Was it Newell's special on chicken breasts at being $12.99 a kg does a hell of a lot more at bringing down the price temporarily of that product than sitting there doing fast track.
Yeah.
I mean, also the other one is the global demand on cow's milk. If we suddenly, that will do a bigger price to sit there and plummet the price of milk if we suddenly have a slowdown of that. It's, fast track just means you might be a bit closer to get your 2 litres bottle of milk.
Yeah, it's just like, we get to wait. We get to wait 6 weeks less.
I mean, put it this way: do you see yourself? Do you see Progressive, considering they're the opposition to foodstuffs, building a Fresh Choice or a Woolworths in Eketahuna? And would it have the ability to actually service the community compared to the current option there, which is the Four Square?
No and no, because the guy who runs the Four Square, I know him. He's a great guy. I know him. He's a great guy. But he is.
Yeah.
Shout out.
It'll be like the same person who runs the one in Shannon.
Yeah, but the thing I like about the Four Square and the way how he runs it is he's very much in tune with what the community needs. He does a great job running that supermarket. So any other supermarket that would come in, right? They're not going to be able to compete with that. He's already got his finger on the pulse, and he's got years and years of experience serving the community. But that's besides the point. Again, the argument hasn't been made. How's it going to lower my grocery prices if another supermarket comes in? I don't know, and I don't think that what I could see is one supermarket coming in, undercutting the other one, right? The other one goes away, and they go, yippee, no competition. I'm going to put my prices back up again.
I think we discovered who one of your who's one of Kiwi-Skirt's what do you call it, clients?
Yes, well, it's all right. It's fine. Are we allowed to criticize businesses that we work for? I'm sure that's
I don't know. Well, I mean, it just means that Kiwi-Skirt's one of the ones that writes the code for the till softwares.
Okay. She's not actually running. She's not like a manager of the store or anything.
No. I think that's what Kiwi-Skirt does. It's the coding for the tills and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but
Kiwi-Skirt will probably correct us with what is or isn't or what her job does.
It is very funny though that National is trying to hide changes that they want to do to environmental protections behind supermarkets. I think that's like. Like, come on! You're telling me? Of course, we're going to see through that.
Yeah. I mean,
and of course, we're going to link it up to other bills like the Regulatory Standards Bill. Of course, it's like, you guys, come on. It's like it's pretty obvious.
They're following the Republican playbook.
Yeah,
they put good provisions into bad legislation and then screen out that the opposition who's seeing through the bad legislation, look, Labour doesn't want to sit down there and say support fast track because they want you to pay high grocery prices.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do here. But this is what anyone can do. Anyone can grab the handset, chuck it in DeepSeek or Chat GTP or whatever, and go, how will this bill impact me?
Yeah.
Everyone can do that, and it's like, okay. Yeah. Here's the issues with the arguments being presented. Here's the issues with the bill, and this is how it's going to impact you. Here's the good parts. Here's the bad parts. Here's the okay parts. And then you look at the bad parts and you go, well, shit, I get less of a say.
Kiwi Scoot has answered the question. It's not right. It's not the tills. It's the accounting software of the back office. Which is like, okay, yeah. And a lot of retail chains tend to have a combined have a system in place. I know BP's one. The software was called GSS, and it ran the tills at the front, but it also did all ordering in the back. So yeah, but no, that's interesting. The till software's outsourced. Well, that's interesting.
Oh, a cat appeared.
God, haven't seen your cat for a while.
That's because I've usually got my background on. But he's usually sitting right here where my finger is.
Oh,
just out of frame. He's always sitting here.
Okay, well, time's up. We're on overtime.
And do not play the David Seymour song as the outro, please, God, no.
Oh no! I'm not going to be doing that. God, I'm wondering whether we even managed to put it as a summer collections of a collection of our musics over the year and put them into a YouTube playlist.
Yeah, I think there's a better place for it.
Okay, so the bills that are coming up for submissions. Okay, got local governance. Auckland Transport Governance Amendment Bill. That closes tonight at 11:59 p.m.
Yep.
We've got the Fast Track Approvals Amendment Bill that closes on Monday at 2 p.m.
We've peered through the crystal ball. We've seen what could happen as a result of this bill. Please submit on it.
The Legal Services Distribution of Special Funds Amendment Bill closes on... Well, sorry, that's a defunct.
Oh,
sorry,
defunct bill.
That's long past. That's one that's been sitting in there for a while. The redress systems for abuse and care is the Wednesday, 26th of November. Yeah, there's not that many bills that are going on at the moment, so yeah.
Okay. Thank you for listening to my ramblings, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I know I started off a bit rocky because I had so many damn notes and I'm very tired. But yes, thank you. I hope that it was at least informative.
Oh yes, we watched Current Affair.
Yes, because I am a firm believer that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and if you can grab something that's policy wonkery and show a picture, shows a practical example from real life about how it's going to impact you, that's a power punch. That's like a 1, 2, 3 combo that you're throwing boxing. It's that powerful. It's OP. It's overpowered. You can see it. It sticks in your brain. Policy on a bill doesn't stick in your brain. A video, a picture sticks in your brain.
Yep. Okay, we'll be back next Sunday for more from the Order Paper podcast. Might be some more regulatory standards bill because it could pass its third reading this coming
God
Sunday.
damn. Right, I'm going to get out the strong alcohol for that one.
Fair enough. See you then. Have a good evening.
Thank you for watching The Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Productions, live at 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time every